Yeah, hi everyone. I'm just going to go through what I went through yesterday, how to use Pythagoras. All right, so remembering what we did yesterday, we had a right angled triangle. And Pythagoras only works for right angled triangles, so you must have a right angled triangle. And remember the side opposite the right angle, which is the longest side, we call the hypotenuse. And we're going to call that side C. The other two sides we're going to call A and B. And it doesn't matter which side you call A and which side you call B. The Pythagorean Theorem states that the hypotenuse squared equals the sum of the squares of the other two sides. All right, and how we're going to use this theorem is we're going to transpose it into two formulas. Firstly, to find the hypotenuse. All right, so let's look at solving a problem and finding the hypotenuse. So we want to find the hypotenuse, so let's call it x. If one side has a measurement of 3 and the other side a measurement of 4, and we want to find x. All right, so 3 corresponds to A on the triangle above. 4 corresponds to the side B, and x being the hypotenuse C. All right. So what I'm going to do, firstly, is transpose the Pythagorean theorem into a formula to find the hypotenuse. And all I need to do is take the square root of both sides. So if I take the square root of c squared, I get c. And if I take the square root of the left-hand side to maintain the equality, I also must take the square root of the right-hand side. So I end up with c equals the square root of a squared plus b squared. Now, if you wish, every time you do a problem, you can start with the Pythagorean theorem and transpose the formula yourself. Or you can memorize this formula and start here, which is what I'm going to do. If you look at all my solutions, this is where I've started. So I'm going to start with c equals the square root of a squared plus b squared. And I'm going to substitute in for c, a, and b. Okay, so c is x, what we're trying to find. A is the side of length 3, so that's 3 squared, plus b is 4, plus 4 squared. You now put that into your calculator, and when you press the buttons on the calculator, you'll find that that's equal to 5. All right? So that's all there is to it. You write down the formula to find the hypotenuse. So c equals the square root of a squared plus b squared. Substitute in that formula. In this case, we're trying to find x. So x equals the square root of 3 squared plus 4 squared. So x equals 5. All right? The other type of problem we might have is finding a side that is not the hypotenuse. So this is finding the hypotenuse. Okay, and now we're going to find a side that is not the hypotenuse. So we're going to start off, draw another triangle. I'm going to try and find this side here. Hypotenuse of length 5, another side of length 4, and we're trying to find x, the unknown side. Okay, so we start off with the Pythagorean theorem again. C squared equals a squared plus b squared. This time, if I label these sides C, B, and A, okay, these are interchangeable, so it doesn't matter which I call which. But for this exercise, I'm going to call this side A. So I'm going to rearrange this formula as we did last term when we were transposing formulas by doing the same thing to both sides, and I'm going to subtract b squared from both sides. So I get a squared equals c squared minus b squared. All right? So I'm going to swap those around. Now I want to find a. I don't want to find a squared, so I take the square root of both sides. So the square root of a squared is a. And I also must take the square root of the other side, which is square root of c squared minus b squared. And as I mentioned yesterday, it's important, I might just flip this up a little bit, make it easier to see. It's important, this order here is important, that you have c squared minus b squared, because this is the longest side, so that'll give you the biggest number, and this is a shorter side, that's a smaller number. So when we subtract b squared from c squared, our answer will be positive. Okay, I'll just make that a little bit clearer, and we don't get a negative number. So now I substitute into this formula. So this is a side that is not the hypotenuse. Okay, substituting in, a is x, c is 5, so c squared is 5 squared, minus b squared, which is 4 squared. So x equals square root of 5 squared minus 4 squared. If you put that on your calculator, you'll find out that x is equal to 3. All right? So there are two different types of problems that you'll have dealing with Pythagoras. Firstly, you need a right-angled triangle. It must be a right-angled triangle. Pythagoras doesn't work with any other kind of triangle. All right, and then you'll either be asked to find a side that is the hypotenuse or a side that is not the hypotenuse. You write the formula for whichever you're trying to find. So in this case, the hypotenuse, c equals the square root of a squared plus b squared. You then substitute into the formula, and then you use your calculator. Similarly, finding a side that is not the hypotenuse, you start with the formula. A, the side that is not the hypotenuse, equals the square root of c squared minus b squared. Substitute into the formula. In this case, it's x equals the square root of 5 squared minus 4 squared. And lastly, press the buttons on your calculator, answer. Okay?